Hello, dear friends, and welcome to the Heallist Podcast. Today, we're unpacking human design with Vickie Dickson, known as the business whisperer. With 30 years of entrepreneurial experience, she's built several businesses and now using human design to help people understand the basics and also improve their businesses using some of those human design techniques and principles. And I'm just super excited to have you here with us today and really unpack one of those mysterious modalities that I'm personally played with a little bit, but I would love to learn more. And I'm sure some of our listeners could be curious as well. How can they utilize this amazing tool for their life, for their business, for their health? So welcome to the podcast. And I'd like to set intention for each episode. And for this one, I really want to help empower people with this amazing tool that I know can be life-changing. So thank you, Vicki, for being here with us.
Thank you for having me. It's the best life-changing tool on the planet, in my opinion.
Amazing. So I can't wait to dive into details. But first of all, I'm curious to start with some of the misconceptions that you're seeing around what human design is, what it does, maybe different like limiting beliefs that people have around it. And maybe even define it, because some of our listeners might not even be familiar with what it really means, or maybe have a wrong idea about it.
My very favorite description of what human design is that if the chakra system, the I Ching, astrology, and the Jewish Kabbalah had a baby, it would be human design. Because it makes it accessible to most of us who have had these healing modalities in our lives for some time. It's based on your birth information. So it's not subjective. It's something that's fact. It's never going to change. That's one of the questions I get a lot. Like, will my human design change the more deconditioning or healing work I do? And no, your human design is always your human design. Some of the things that I get a little frustrated with, I'm a manifesting generator, so frustration is something that happens in my life. And some of the things that I get frustrated with are people thinking that their human design dictates whether they can do something or not. Should I have a group coaching program because I'm a projector? Should I have all of these things? Your human design doesn't tell you what you can do. It tells you how to do what you do. It gives you your path of least resistance. You can do anything you want to do. We all have all of the design. It's just which parts are you going to activate and use for the particular work that you're doing. And then the other big frustration, I would say there's really only two, but the other one is using your human design as a label or an excuse, which is kind of the same thing. I can't do that because I'm a projector. I can't do this because I'm this. I can't do, and on it goes. And human design is so much more than your type. One of the questions I asked you when we started was, what's your profile? Those two little numbers. It means so much in your design. We want to look at all of the areas and see the nuances together. And I think that that's often missed in this cookie cutter, ChatGPT, content saturation place that we live in right now.
So let's talk about some of those things that you mentioned, just to, again, help our listeners who might not be familiar with some of the basics of it, right? So there's the profiles, there's the general, there's numbers. If you can give us also a little bit of a background, like where did it come from? How was this system created?
Sure. So this system was a divine download, shall we say, to a Canadian. Actually, I'm Canadian as well, about 2.5 hours from where I live. And Ra Uru Hu is what he had changed his name to once the human design system was downloaded. It's taken from your birth information. So you're going to want to have your birth day and place and time, because we want to see where the planets were at the time of your birth. That's a lot about how human design works. It highlights different gates, which are taken from the I Ching. So that's where you see the numbers on your chart. Human design has really weird words. There's so many weird words to get a hold of. I know when I was first introduced to it, probably it came into my field for about 4 years before finally I had some horrific experiences happen that led me to human design, to seriously study human design. But before then, it was just, there was so much to get a hold of. The chart looks weird. The numbers are weird, the words are weird, all of the things. So the basics are your type and strategy. So your type is going to be a manifesting generator, a projector, a manifestor, or a reflector. And then there are 12 different profiles. Your profile really tells you the role that you play in the movie of your life. It is the easiest thing and the hardest thing to embody. Well, no, we discovered you weren't. So I am a 2-4. Second lines need time to hermit away. So what do you think the thing was that I was told was wrong with me for my whole life? You're too quiet. You're snotty. You need too much time alone. Come be with the people. So it's natural for me to fall into this second line, we call it, but it's also really hard. So that's a big deconditioning area for people. Those two numbers that show your profile, you're going to find a lot of healing work that you can do there. And then when you can really step into that, it changes everything. I think even if you only used your type and strategy in your profile for the rest of your life, you would experience so much more ease in your life.
Absolutely. And I couldn't agree more with you. Once I know actually very little about human design, but once I discovered, I think one of my strategies is waiting for invitation. And that was a game changer because for someone who's built businesses and was kind of forced to, as a business owner, you're always the seller, right? You have to market, you have to sell. And it was always really challenging for me. And I thought, well, it's because maybe I didn't go to business school or I wasn't trained in sales and all those things. And I really worked hard. And a lot of it was using like the hustle culture, right? Or using the power. And once I realized like this is actually something to do with my type, and it resonated so much, and it completely changed my business strategy and how I approach things, and really reduced a lot of the frustration with myself, and maybe even boosted my self confidence, just knowing that there's a different way maybe to do sales that is more suitable for my type. So it was really, for me, I can attest, it was really life-changing, even just knowing that.
Especially as a projector, I think. I have so many projectors in my world, and I think, oh my gosh, to find out that you're a projector must be, so many pieces must click for you when you hear that and you understand what it means.
Right. Right. And then even looking at the picture when I did my chart and just seeing that I only have the top three
Yes.
centers lit up and everything else is basically wide open. It really, it clicked a lot of things, like you said.
So can I unpack that a little bit with you?
Yes,
Would that
please,
be helpful?
let's use
Sure.
me as an example. I love that.
Sure. Or for even for any of your listeners, when you're looking at the whiteness or the areas in your chart that are not colored in, you're looking at what you're breathing in from the field. So lots of times in human design circles, we will hear that, or we will say that that's where it's your not self, which it is. It's your not self. It's not who, it's who you're not here to be, but it's who you think you are. And that where you can amplify the energies of others. And we always look at it as a bad thing. But those are actually where your lessons are held, in that whiteness, in that openness. So when we look at your design, Yuli, we see more openness than definition. The areas that are colored in are considered defined. Where you're defined, that's where you're broadcasting out. And where you're undefined, that's where you're breathing in. So those undefined areas are like light switches that are off. And when you're in relationship with someone, in aura with someone who has some of that definition, the light switch goes on. So you have this variable energy there. And for you, probably you can push through when you're with certain people and you can feel like, wow, I can just do all of the things. And then you get away from them and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted. What just happened to me? And it's because you amplified those energies. But your challenge is, one of your challenges is to be really wise about the use of energy and how precious it is as a projector.
Yeah.
So I think rather than looking at our openness as like something we don't have, it's actually really incredible gifts, especially in your business, to use your openness.
I love that. I love that perspective. Yeah, it's definitely, I think, a big piece of human design, right? To figure out how you work with the parts are defined versus not defined, which I feel like it's in general in our life.
Yes.
It's something anyone on the healing path, right? It's always this kind of the things that I know I have. This is part of my personality, DNA, however you want to call it. And those are the parts that can be transformed and they're more fluid. I find it really fascinating that actually helps you define that.
And when you think about the things, the areas that are defined in your human design, we tend to think that we are only conditioned in our openness. But we have different kinds of conditioning. So the areas where you are, like you have a lot of mental definition. You have a lot of wanting to speak your mind. In your particular design, you have really weird insights that nobody else can understand, and so much individuality. And those are probably the things that people told you were just too much. That's way too much. too weird. We can't wrap our minds around that. No, keep that to yourself. And where you're open, that's where you kind of internalize that I'm not enough. I don't have energy here. I don't have, like for you, you have an undefined G center, the diamond shape in the middle of your chart. So oftentimes it can be really wondering, like, what direction am I going? Who am I really? Like all these different identity shifts, geographical sensitivity. But oh my gosh, to help someone else with their direction in life, you've got it in spades. You can just coach them like nobody's business, but it's always harder for ourselves.
Yeah, no, it makes so much sense. And definitely, I think this is why it took me so many years to come to this place that I speak my mind and I have a podcast.
Yeah.
Because I feel like finally I'm comfortable sharing some of those weird woo ideas, whatever you want to call them, right? And it's just, it feels like home, but it took a lot of work to be comfortable with this weirdness. And I'm sure a lot of healers, a lot of people on the healing path who are listening to that can relate to that. It's a big part of our journey is to accept those parts that by society often defined and all kinds of labels. So thank you for defining that very, very nicely. So you mentioned birth chart and planets, and I'm sure it's a question that you get asked a lot. How is it different from astrology? And I actually studied astrology, so I know a little bit about it, a little bit about the science of it. But I'm curious, are those two related? And if so, what are some of the similarities or differences?
Sure. So I know just enough about astrology to make me dangerous, and I am so drawn to it. I want to learn it so much. But I find it so much more complicated. And human design is complicated too when we first look at it. And maybe it's because it's my first love that I'm like, okay, I'm in the role of this. Astrology, I feel like has a lot more moving parts. I could be just making that up, but that's what it feels like to me. The planets are the same. No matter if you're looking at astrology or human design, those planetary things are going to be the same. So Mercury is always going to be the planet of communication. Your conscious sun is going to be, in human design, it's about 70% of who you are. In astrology, I believe it's who you are, I think. Your sun planet, yeah. So yeah, the planets are going to be the same as astrology. Those astrological placements are going to be really important in your human design chart.
But one thing astrology has that you mentioned is that complexity is through the movement of the planets and the transits and that adds a whole other layer, right? That also often explains some of the changes and the transformations. So you mentioned earlier on that human design, like a lot of people kind of ask you this question, what happens if a person transforms or steps on a healing path and changes? So I wonder how does it work in human design because I understand with in astrology through transits, and I'm curious how human design tackles those transformations.
So the planets are transiting, the same as they're transiting in astrology, they're transiting in human design. So we see them move through different pieces of your design. Right now, for instance, the sun and earth that's transiting is gates. We look at them as gates. Gates 63 and 64 are transiting right now. It's a lot of mental pressure. The founder of human design always called this headache weather. I woke up yesterday, the first day of the transit, with a headache. And I rarely get headaches. Maybe 3 days a year I would get a headache. But a lot of people are experiencing this mental pressure. So we look at the planets that are transiting the gate numbers in human design. We also look at the big planetary transits, like what astrology does. Saturn return, second Saturn return, third Saturn return. Chiron return is big for the women that I work with because I work with women at midlife and that's our wounded healer. So we have this massive transformation. We have the Uranus opposition around 40, 45, something like that, where we've thought for years these are midlife crises, but it's just that we're more on our healing path. So through these transformations that we go through, it doesn't change your design. Same as in astrology. Your astrology is always going to be your astrology, but you're going to experience these transits through life. You're going to do your healing work, hopefully, go through all of these things that we go through, these lessons that we have. And each gate in human design has potentially 1,080 ways it can be expressed. There are 64 gates and each of them has 1,080 ways it could be expressed. So there is going to be a higher expression of the energies in your chart. Always, always, always. There's always another level of healing for us to get to, no matter what modality that we're looking at.
So, how do you work with human design as part of your healing journey?
With my clients,
Well, maybe, yeah, maybe it will be a good time to give people some examples, right? When do people come usually? Is it something that you recommend people kind of do the initial chart and then come back and revisit? What do you see from your end when people come to human design? What are the typical points in their lives that you feel like it could really help and guide them?
Okay, anytime for a baseline reading. So what I would strongly suggest is a baseline reading for almost anyone who's really on a healing path and finding, I feel like I'm missing something. I feel like something is off here and I can't quite grasp it. Either my work isn't right, my relationships aren't right, something's off. I don't feel really good about this experience that I'm having. And find a reader that you can really relate to. Find a reader that you're like, okay, I understand the way she speaks, the way he speaks. I get the way that they present these concepts. I feel like they can help me integrate this information. Because I had 2 human design readings when I very first started, and then I turned my back on it for 4 years because it was just gobbledygook that I couldn't understand. And we really need someone who can unpack all the pieces in a way that you can take it away and go, okay, well, this is how you're going to use this in your business. This is how you're going to use this in your relationship with your son. This is why this is happening at work. So a baseline reading is really a good idea. And what you really want to do, what I would really invite you to do is to understand your own design. Have that basic reading from someone that you trust, and then get into really unpacking all the pieces of your own design, which is going to take years. There's still things in my design that I will say to someone else in the field, can you give me your perspective on this? Like, I loved what you shared about finding out your projector in your business because it's all about your lived experience. So you're going to have a reading or some baseline to start with, and then you're going to take that information, hopefully, and you're going to live it. And then that might open up some more questions for you. And maybe you'll be ready for another level of it. But start with the basics. And please don't think you have to learn human design. It's just living your own design.
And was there a commonality among the people that come to you, or something that you really see like this is one area that it's really like no other tool or modality?
So when I first started with human design, using it as part of my business, I was in holistic health. I had a holistic health practice for about 10 years. And I worked with women at midlife, perimenopause and menopause. That's my jam. There was still something missing. Like, it was never about the weight or the hormones or the whatever. There was something missing. And I remember in nutrition school, we had to do these questionnaires of however many hundreds of women and do this survey. And the number one need, or the number one driver for women seeking help, was unfulfilled expectations. And I think there's a real drive for purpose at midlife. I know there's a real drive for purpose at midlife. That's my story. And human design just cuts through the noise. It is so personalized that I can look in and share with you, but you can look into your human design and you can see who you're here to be at your highest self. So when I first started in my practice, that's what I was dealing with mostly, was purpose with women at midlife mixing with their health. Fast forward, again, manifesting generator, I'm not sticking to one thing. Fast forward, I think 5 years now, 7 years now, and I use it more for business. I use it with women specifically around messaging. And I was listening to some of your episodes today that were so good. One of them was the elevator pitch one. And in my head, I'm always like, but what about their human design? Because I think that we miss oftentimes the bigger piece of the conversation. Expecting women to show up online in business, speaking their truth, saying their elevator pitch, making their offers, all of these things. And then we forget that they've got this noose around their neck or this frog in their throat whenever they go to speak their actual truth, because it's been so conditioned out of them. So now the work that I do, I mean, it's always all there. There's always all the layers of purpose and all of that. But the work that I do really now is around your voice and your message, so that you can say actually the message that you came here to share, so you can change the world.
Oh my God, this is such an incredible work and resonates so much, because I think it's something that definitely gets overlooked with a lot of the advice that is given. And it creates this internal struggle, right? You start feeling inadequate. And for me, I was in a very similar place, realizing that as a founder, CEO of a company, there's this pressure to be public, to be perfect presenter and speaker, and do all those things that were not my nature. So I had to train myself, and I had to consciously work on opening the center many ways with multiple modalities. And this podcast is actually, this is my healing tool.
Mm-hmm.
Because really I mean, you can do any holistic modality out there, but if you don't practice, it doesn't become part of your body. It just kind of lives there as a dream in your mental body. But I really wanted to embody that. So this podcast, as much as it's terrifying and it's such a headache to produce sometimes, and I get to these places that you just like, you have days that you have 2 guests scheduled and you just wake up and like, oh my God, I have to like find the strength in me to get out there, be on camera. And now that we moved on camera, this was my next, for 2 years, we did it just audio because that's all I could take. And only about a couple of months ago, we moved to video, which was my next push for myself, because I think the other part of it is being visible. Being heard is one, but then being seen and being visible, that's a whole other challenge. And I'm pushing myself through it because I know this is part of my healing work, is one. And two, this is what's going to help spread the important message I'm trying to spread in this day and age. But it takes work. It takes a lot of internal work. I think a lot of people make this mistake thinking, well, it's just easy for this person.
Yeah.
Because they're born with it.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm
all
sure
day long.
a test, right? That for most of us are not born with these natural abilities to be podcasters and social media stars and all those things, right? But I think many of us are choosing this form of healing because really we feel that this is part of our purpose. So I'm glad that you're helping other women, especially, to open that center. It's a really sacred work.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I ask you something, even though you're the interviewer?
You can always switch up. Yes.
It'll help your listeners as well who are projectors. Do you recognize yourself? Do you have a daily practice of taking time to recognize yourself as a projector?
Not specifically as a projector. I mean, I have a daily meditation practice, but yes.
And I hear this from my projector clients. Actually, I'm going to give kudos to the projector who shared this with me, and now we share it with all of our projectors. But Juliana Christine works in the human design field, the relationship alchemy field. And she has realized as a projector how important recognition is for you. Ra, the founder of human design, always said, recognition starts with you. So projectors so often don't understand their gifts and how special you are as a projector. You're a lighthouse. You're meant to be there. Like the lighthouse doesn't go out to the ships come to the lighthouse. So when you have a practice daily of recognizing yourself, it could be something, Yuli, great job showing up for that podcast when you didn't want to show up. Great job getting out of bed. Great job doing the dish. Like whatever it is, I recognize you. I see you. And it may sound ridiculous. I mean, we've probably on this podcast, your listeners have all been familiar with mirror work, but I think it really was designed for projectors because the way that it's explained to me by my projectors, it's not my lived experience, is that it almost enlivens you. It like zhuzhes you up from the inside when you recognize yourself, and then it feels like you've been invited. You've invited yourself, but it feels like that. So for what it's worth, on those days when it's like, I've got to face this calendar full of things and I want to crawl into a hole.
I love this advice. And it's interesting that you said that because I often feel like I expect that recognition, or I crave that recognition from others, and it's not always there. I mean, we don't live in this perfect society and surroundings that people just go around and compliment us. And I certainly didn't grow up in that culture at all. I think it's also something very American, or,
Canadian too. Yeah.
something maybe in this culture that's part of it, but it wasn't part of my culture. The constant, positive reinforcement and recognition and compliments. So it took me a while to learn how to do that for others. But then also I do have that expectation, which often comes with disappointment.
And bitterness. That's where where you get resentful because nobody's recognizing you.
Yes.
And then you might accept, not just you, any projector might accept the wrong invitation just because you're so hungry for that recognition. And it's not a fault. We tend to think in our culture, we tend to think, well, if you're looking for recognition, there's something wrong with you. That's the mechanics. That's what lights up your design. That's what actually makes you move and get out of bed in the morning. And what a world it would be if people did actually walk around recognizing each other. Like if every one of your listeners today went out and recognized one person in their life, imagine what a day that would be for the planet.
Absolutely. I mean, it's such an important topic because for me, and it's constant, like, can you continue being the lighthouse and do everything you do without having that recognition too,
Yes.
right? And we often struggle and we go to this place when we label ourselves, so we try to kind of shame ourselves for creating that recognition, right? That, oh, it's an ego. But it's just so comforting to know that this is not coming from an ego. This is again part of my design. So I learned something today that I'm grateful for.
Yay.
And hopefully some of our listeners too. And I think it's just a great example how some of those tools like, human design in particular can give you that comfort and self-acceptance, which I think is just such a big part of any healing, right? Anything we can take, any condition, mental, physical, a lot of it is rooted in this lack of self acceptance or really internal struggles with who we are.
Lives that it's wrong, that we're wrong.
Yeah. So I think any tool that leads you to that self acceptance and gives you tools to understand yourself and not feel inadequate is extremely important on a healing journey. Just want to take a pause and take a deep breath because I feel like, I always say some of the episodes I record, some of them are for listeners, but some of them are also my own healing episodes, which I really selfishly love. And this is really part of the reason I love this podcast and I go through all the technical setups and all those dreading thoughts because there's a lot of nuggets of wisdom that come through. And a lot of those episodes, I do feel like I get the healing just by being there and learning and unpacking things about myself as well. So thank you for that. And I wanted to also learn a little bit more about, I know that you mentioned you use now human design more for the business side, which is another exciting topic that I always love to talk about because I think anyone who brings this depth of spirituality and connection and consciousness into the business world is just I mean you're a sacred worker. This is what we need now in the business world because we're going through this transformation that we're unlearning a lot of the old ways that were installed in us, and we're really rewiring ourselves for this new era of doing business actually consciously. So I'm curious how you bring human design into the business world and how you work with your clients on that piece.
Well, it's a thread that just goes through everything that I do. So I had the opportunity this week to interview 5 of the grads of my signature program that I run, Content by Design. And much like a projector, sometimes you can't see yourself. You can see others so clearly, you can't see yourself. I'm a 2-4 profile, second line in human design. I can't see myself. And it was so interesting to hear these women talk about what they got out of it. And it seems to be that one of the things that I do is that I weave human design so effortlessly into, I have built, I know I'm disjointed sentence here, I'm sorry, but I've built 5 different multi-6-figure businesses across 5 completely different industries. And I love, love, love business. But what I didn't love was that I burned myself out 3 times in those businesses. And I look around and I see a sea of women who are completely burned out in their businesses. So my secret sauce really seems to be helping you to see how you can do your business your way. There is absolutely no reason you can't have whatever business, whatever goal, whatever you want in your life. But let's do it in a way that you don't burn down your life every 7 to 10 years to get it done. Let's build it in a way where you can, like for me, my grandkids had an impromptu sleepover last night. Or I can do whatever I want during the day as long as I get the other work done when the energy is there for it. I'm a manifesting generator. I need to be doing 16 things at once. you're a projector. That's probably not going to be your path. But we all have been conditioned to be generative. Like my conditioning says you have to stick to one thing. You have to do it this way and it has to be one thing. Whereas yours probably says you better get more done in a day. You better get hustling. I just take all of that out the window. Look at your unique human design. Looking at, like you have human design circuitry as well, which we didn't talk about. We could talk for days about all of this stuff. But we can look into your design and we can see, are you bent more towards group work? Are you bent more towards one-on-one work? Because there's this danger in the online space where we tell women that the only way they're going to scale their business is to offer a group program and to sell it en masse. But if you don't have any circuitry for a group program, good luck holding that group together or not falling apart yourself. And then I have these beautiful women who make excellent one-on-one coaches. And they get so discouraged because they think they're never going to be able to scale because somebody somewhere told them that's not the way to run a business one-on-one. You're going to kill yourself. But if that's their gift and that's their genius, then let's find a way that they can actually scale that one-on-one work so that they're lit up every day of their life and they don't burn themselves out and they do good work on the planet. So there's all these, I use every area of your human design to say, how can we get you where you want to go with your path of least resistance? To me, that's what your human design is for. It's the map of how you're going to do this thing that you came here to do without breaking your life.
I love that. And yeah, I wish I knew more of those tools when I was entrepreneur who's burning out and trying again to hustle and push myself constantly without even realizing that, this limited amount of energy is not something that I can solve with supplements,
Yeah, so good.
which is another thing people tend to, like I think you mentioned earlier, people first thing they go to like hormones or supplements. And when you realize this is who you are and just learn to accept that very lovingly. Yeah, I do still take supplements.
Yes.
Of
Yeah.
course, they can hurt, but I also have certain expectations about what I can accomplish and how I do that without burning myself out. That's, I think, a very important message.
And I don't think it's about so many times. Here's another thing I get frustrated with in human design, it turns out. But so many times we talk about projectors like you should be tired all the time. It's like you're not called to be tired, you're called to be rested. So, like treasuring that energy, really treasuring the energy that you have and being a good steward of it. Whereas for me, I'm the opposite end of the spectrum. I have so much energy that there are days that I have to actually move my body to get rid of energy. And so instead of me trying to sit at a desk or trying to just have one project on the go and take it from start to finish, that's never going to happen in my life. And now the women that are in my world, that are in my containers, they love it when I go all Manny Jen on them. I will always be like, okay, I'm sorry, you guys, I have to bring this up as well. And I have to talk about this. And they're like, no, bring it on. That's what we're here for. That's why we're here, because we chose you because of that energy. And your people are going to choose you, and someone else's people are going to choose them when we actually embrace who we are. Don't just accept it, freaking love it.
Another thing you mentioned that some of the work you do is around messaging, being human design messaging. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Oh, I could talk all day about that. Yes. So I think that's an often overlooked place where human design could be used more than it is. In true manifesting generator fashion, one of my other careers, I'm also a copywriter. So I love words. I love linguistics. Everything about writing is what I love. And we've got so much conditioning around who we are. And then we try to show up online. And I always say it's like trying to show up at your 30-year high school reunion naked and expect you won't be judged or be afraid of people judging you. That's what it feels like to be in the online business sometimes. And people are buying all these templates and these formulas and now ChatGPT prompts and GPTs and all of these things. But there's deeper work to be done. There's so much conditioning around the voice. You think of all of the times that you were told in your life, especially you with the 4323 channel, don't say it like that. That's too weird. I don't understand what you're talking about. Or maybe you tried to get an answer in school and you went about it a completely different way than anyone else and you still got the right answer, but it was wrong somehow because of the way that you did it. with that particular channel. I work with a lot of fifth line profiles. Fifth line profiles, I think, have the biggest witch wound of all of us because they are the heretics. They are the ones who are here to tell it like it is at all costs. Let the chips fall where they may. Doesn't mean they're mean, doesn't mean they're witches. Just means they just have this gift for seeing it, for seeing what needs to be fixed and calling it out. Well, you picture a 3-year-old little girl or a 5-year-old little girl. My granddaughter is a fifth line profile. And the number of times that she says something, she's also here to be shocking. And the number of times that something comes out of her mouth. And I think, because when I was a kid, it would have been like, don't you dare talk like that. But she's actually designed to talk like that. So when we go back with the work that I do in the messaging, it's not about, I help so-and-so to do so-and-so without so-and-so. It's not that statement. It's not like, yes, we need all of that stuff. But if we haven't done the deeper work on actually, what are all those things that we've been told about ourselves? Sometimes, not sometimes, most of the time, the women that I work with, they pour out their hearts on their keyboards and they're ready to do the post. And that delete button is their best friend in life. They have got so much inside of them that is unsaid. And so instead of saying what they really need to say, what they really mean to say, they delete it all and they put up something inspirational or educational. Because educational content, if I just keep educating people and telling them how to do this or telling them this about human design or this about Reiki or whatever it is, then surely they'll think I'm smart enough and they'll hire me. Meanwhile, it's like stuck in your throat. What you really need to say, what's actually going to bring your soul fit client to you is when you say that. So that's the work that I do with my people.
Yes.
I know I'm a lot.
We're all sitting there, and yeah, it sounds incredible. And I love that you incorporating with human design. It's just, I look forward to digging more into your work. And I know we're running out of time, and I have so many questions because you feel like a wealth of information on the topic and a lot of important topics that I think our listeners will appreciate as well. But I wanted to thank you for being here. And if there's anything else that you wish to say as kind of parting words of wisdom for people who are looking to utilize human design or maybe even learn themselves.
I think the biggest thing that I would say is don't get caught in the trap of thinking that you have to learn human design. Focus on your own design and live the bits that you learn, and it'll change your life. And then if you want to learn, I'm not saying don't ever learn, but it can be so overwhelming if you try to learn everything. But if you just focus on you to get started, that'll give you enough that you can work with.
Absolutely. And we didn't touch one topic, but I think a lot of our listeners might be curious how this can be used also in more like physical conditions or physical challenges, whether it's chronic disease or injuries, or maybe you mentioned women in perimenopause. So I'm just curious, how does it work with the physical body?
So there definitely are correlations with the gates to the physical body, but I'm going to keep it like really top level here, high level, because it's something that everybody can use. So generators and manifesting generators, let's talk about sleep because most people don't have the best sleep in the world. So generators and manifesting generators have loads of sacral energy. Every day they get a new load of energy. And this starts very young. What we do with all people, but generators and manifesting generators, we sit them down at a desk for 8 hours. And we don't have them moving their bodies. You need to physically move your body daily. If you're a generator or manifesting generator, you absolutely have to move that energy through your body. When you don't, you will experience ADD, ADHD, kind of unscattered thought patterns. You could have thyroid issues because the energy doesn't have anywhere to go, because all energy in human design, this is really weird, but all energy in human design is trying to get to the throat. So it can have effects on your thyroid. And then you can't sleep because you're buzzing. So I have 4 grandchildren. 3 of them are generator types. And at bedtime, they run around their open concept house. Like if you go to their house at bedtime, it's like you want to go outside because it is crazy in there. And, we sat our kids down and had them read books and all of these things. But that's the last thing that generators types, manifesting generators and generators need. They need to get their energy out. And they will say to us, we just got to get our energy out before bedtime, Mimi. Perfect that we're teaching them that because we didn't learn that. And then we have this epidemic of people who can't sleep, and 80% of people who are diagnosed with thyroid conditions are women, and all of the things. So that's one thing. Projectors, manifestors, reflectors, completely the opposite. You have amplified, taken on, sucked up so much sacral energy that isn't yours throughout the day, that what you want to do is have about 30 minutes where you can be in a prone position before bedtime by yourself and let all of that sacral energy dissipate. This should not be watching scary movies or having conversations about money or any of those things. It's, maybe reading a nice book, maybe having a bath, laying down in the tub, but you really need to let that go so that then you can relax into sleep. It's also really a benefit for, we call them non-sacral beings, people who do not have a defined sacral, so projectors, manifestors, reflectors, to sleep alone so that you're not being conditioned while you sleep, because then you wake up and you don't feel like yourself when you're sleeping with somebody else that's conditioning you while you sleep. So that's just one of the things. One more thing that I will say is if there are any channels, so a channel is the full line between two numbers. If there are any channels between your spleen center and your root center, you need to sweat daily. You have to work out daily to get rid of that energy. There are so many other things I could say, but we would be here all day. So that's just tip of the iceberg.
Well, thank you. I know we're trying to wrap up, but I just had to ask
okay.
this question. And thank you. It's an amazing advice. And I can totally relate to what you're saying and actually have a 30-minute winding down routine every night that totally contributes to my sleep score skyrocketing. So confirmed.
Good. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thank you for being this wealth of information, wisdom. I do hope we inspired some of our listeners to dig deeper into human design, at least get their own chart, right? It's easily available online, I believe, for free. And I know on your website, I was able to just go and get one pretty quickly. So we're going to put that in the show notes. Thank you again. And we're going to let people know again, the show notes, where to find you and your incredible services.
Thank you. It was fun to be here.
Thank you, Vicki.